Thank you.
Perfect.
We ready?
Yep. Yes.
Right, rolling. Women in the Arts Roundtable.
Hi, I'm Courtney Hammonds, and I'm an apprentice with Broadway in Cincinnati. Today I am here with these three incredible women who have had long careers and very successful careers in the performing arts. I'll have each of them introduce themselves, and then we'll get into some questions.
Hi, I am Lynn Meyers. I'm the producing artistic director of Ensemble Theater, Cincinnati.
Hello, I'm Brenda Carter, Cincinnati Arts Association Vice President of Human Resources, and I've been with this organization over 30 years.
Hi, I'm Annie Fitzpatrick. I am a local actress here in Cincinnati and have worn many hats and have worked for this lady in particular.
I'm so excited to meet all of you and to hear from you guys today. I'll start off with the first question. What sparked your interest in the arts? What is your origin story?
I would say I was lucky enough that I had an aunt and uncle who were actors. So one of my earliest memories is seeing a play. We think I was about 2.5 or 3, and my aunt was in a show at Edgecliff. She was in college at the time, and we were kind of sitting, my mom had me on her lap, and we were way in the back. She just wanted to catch a part of it and figured she'd have to leave with me. And I remember the actor made the entrance from the back of the house. So we were sitting, and I saw somebody in this crazy costume. It was the importance of being earnest. And then he walked down into the dark and onto the stage. And if he had flown, I could not have been, I just thought it was magical. I couldn't believe it, that it had happened. And I still have that little like goosebumpy feeling from seeing that. So for me, that was, I want to do that.
I was actually employed in the arts. Before coming here to Cincinnati Arts Association, I was with an organization that I won't name, but they were the biggest well-renowned orchestra in the country. I worked behind the scenes in the office, but I started to get to know the musicians, and I became close to them personally. I handled some of their personal information. So with that, I've been in the arts ever since.
I had been always thinking I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to be a defense attorney. And but during the course of that high school experience, I ended up having to do a lot of speech competitions. I was always looking for scholarships and things like that. So by doing speech competitions, I realized that a lot more people went to movies and theater than came to speech competitions. And I thought it might be the same with law. So I got very interested in theater because it was a way in the arts, whether you're painting it or doing it on stage, it was a way for you to walk in somebody else's shoes. And I thought it might be a great way to listen to all sides of a story, maybe a little bit better than I would be able to do in a courtroom. So now I've ended up doing this instead of that.
Different courtroom.
Mm-hmm. Different courtroom.
What superpower do you think women bring to the table?
Intuition. Intuition.
Well, I can fly. You said superpower. Well, let's see here. I think you're right about that, Lynn. Intuition, that gut feeling about certain things and certain people. I think that's a very good answer.
The idea of multitasking. I think women have to be many different things to different people throughout the course of our lives. Hopefully in that you become a better listener, trying to figure out what people need so you can do that. And I do think listening, both of the things you were talking about, if you're a good listener, you can learn about those people in the arts and how they're starting, and learn about all these different points of view. And I think, for good or for ill, we're supposed to be nice girls, sit quietly and listen rather than talk. That maybe that's changing, but that might be something that also helps us be more powerful in the arts.
Yes, I think that's definitely changing, and I'm very, very glad that it is.
Good.
I'd like to know, why is representation of women in the arts workplace so important?
Well, we're more than half the population. So I think it's just really important to see women not only in roles, in performance roles, but also to hear about the women who create that, the women directors, the women who are the writers, the women producers. And I think that's more and more becoming common. It wasn't for many years, and I've been doing this for many years, and I think it's very important because young women like you need to know that you can do anything. And if we don't show the way, then how will you know that? So rather than think you're not going to be included, you need to know absolutely. Not only are you needing to be included, but you're necessary.
Right. And I think that diversity brings about women in general. We bring about a unique perspective, unique viewpoints that help complement our male counterparts. And I think that lends to a more well-rounded decision-making in your organization, in addition to being role models, like Lynn said, for young ladies such as yourself, to see that there can be women in power makes a big difference. So not just being, I'm not a performer, I'm not on the stage, I'm behind the scenes. And to be able to lend my perspective and get other ladies' perspectives on how they feel about certain things, it helps me to be a better individual. So it's always a development for me, in addition to whoever we bring aboard into our organization, to have that different, well-rounded point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And that idea of we have to see somebody doing it before we can even think that maybe we're going to be invited to that table. I remember doing a show that had been predominantly a white cast, and there were lots of children in this cast, and one of the main characters was recast in the show had gone on for a while, and suddenly it was a person of color, and the little girls who had been in the show before were, you could just see how that brought them that spark in their eyes that, oh, I can be one of the main storytellers in this. I don't have to be on the periphery. I can take center stage. I can give a different point of view. I can be heard here and be a real force in the storytelling as opposed to just decoration.
Right.
Has there been any moment in any of you all's careers that you've experienced imposter syndrome? And what advice do you have to a budding arts administrator who may be feeling that along their journey?
As an actor, the best advice I ever got from anyone was you should be an actor and that you are an actor. And I think in the arts, you are it's hard enough to carve a path with just seeing yourself in one way. I think most of us, I mean, the days are gone where somebody worked for one company and they did the same thing for their whole career. That's over. So you have to just step into that, hey, I think I can see myself in that and I will learn as I go. And I think that takes confidence to do that, to know that I will figure it out. I will ask for help. I will acknowledge the things I don't know and I will go learn them or seek others to partner with me. But I do think everyone does that, not just women in the arts. And I think that women may feel like, oh, because I've only seen men take those roles and do those shifts in their careers, they must know something that I don't, when in fact, they don't. And I've had any number of male friends who've gotten jobs and said, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then they would just figure it out.
Right.
And that I think imposter syndrome, is everywhere, that we're all trying to figure it out as we go. And hopefully you should be trying to do something that you don't quite know how to do yet, because that's how we learn and grow.
Absolutely.
And I think that goes back to what you're saying, goes back to your previous question about role models, et cetera. Being in the arts and seeing someone like you in the arts, I mean, it gives you that opportunity too, imposter syndrome, is to put yourself in that place and think about what would I be like if I did this, or how do I achieve that? You won't know unless you get out there and you try it.
And I feel that imposter syndrome every day. There is a moment where I have self-doubt about, should I be here? Should I be doing that? Why do I think I can do this? And then I do it. And then it's like, okay, yeah, we'll go on to the next one. Somebody early in my career said to me, well, who do you think you are that you want to do this professionally? I mean, you're not coming out of an Ivy League school, you're coming from Ohio. I mean, it was very condescending. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, you can tell me a lot of things about me, but you can't tell me why I can't do something else. So I think the only way to sort of push that imposter syndrome down is to do something that you really doubt you can do, and then you succeed, and then you go on and do the next thing.
And maybe we need to rebrand that word.
Yes.
Like we've said, because you just don't know everything already. It's actually the people who think they know everything are the ones who get us all into trouble.
Right.
It's the ones who are like, I don't know that. I will say that, and I will find out. And I think being allowed to say, I don't know yet is not I think it's an imposter syndrome when we say it quietly in our head and are fearful, but when we share that and say, hey, partner with me, I want to learn more about that. Where can I find that out?
Very good, because I also think that when you have a network of, when we say women in leadership roles, et cetera, when you form networks of us, we have the support to bounce ideas off one another. And I think we're more apt to tell you where you think something may be a good idea or a bad idea, but there's more confidence that we have in one another to be able to have those conversations that you may not have with your male counterpart.
I think that's absolutely true. I feel much more comfortable discussing things and feeling less condemned or less stopped when I have a community of women to discuss it with, because it's a discussion as opposed to a yes and no answer. And nothing in this world is really yes or no. So no, I completely agree. I do think finding that circle, finding your friends, finding the people that you can confide in, finding the people that have like views or really different views so that you can calmly have a discussion is really important. Opening yourself up to that trust.
Sometimes I would second guess myself. If those double standards exist, I will second guess myself, have that conversation with the network of my girls to as a sounding board, like, does this sound right to you? Or is it just me being sensitive? Or what do you think about this? So I think once I get that further confirmation, if I'm right, sometimes I'll go and address the situation just to, I guess, stand my ground in my beliefs and my values, and I will express my opinion to the individual that I felt that put me in that place in the first place to make me doubt myself.
And I do that. I mean, when I feel something, I want to make sure it's not just my feeling, but that's actually a double standard. And getting that kind of confirmation from people that you trust is important. And then I think we do have to then confront. And I don't really like confrontation at all, but sometimes you just simply have to. You just simply have to. And sometimes if it's something that's it ends up not being the right fit for you. And then you have to feel confident enough that some other day there'll be another fit, which is often hard to do.
I think it's also hard when you are, I'm speaking as an actor, you're always there asking for work in essence. And when you see all of that, you don't want to be the problem person in the production or whatever, and you're always hoping to have further work. And we are, by nature, actors are freelance, we come and go. There's a lot of currency in relationship. And so when you do feel that, see something and you think, oh, that's not right, that's a double standard. I know I always like, do I speak up or do I,
that's interesting.
There's that, is this going to hurt my job or my ability to get work in the future? And how do we have those conversations? And again, to notice sometimes there are double standards out there. The people who I know to be good people, we all have blind sides. I have them too. I'm sure I have all kinds of double standards and things that I've done that were insensitive that, because we have them, because we're human beings. And trying to find the right way to address it. And that's why, again, coming back to your people where you say, hey, this happened. I'm really hot about it. Is it me? Am I right? So what do we do? And then to be strategic about how you address it moving forward. And realistically, what can you change? And what are the battles you're willing to draw a line in the sand, and what are the ones where you're like, hey, this is going to be an ongoing conversation before we can create a change. And I do think younger people are more likely to go, this is the line, no.
Right.
And it's good energy to have in the room because it keeps the discussion going. And it makes us, I know I do, rethink things because I've heard that young person say that, and I think, well, and sometimes I think they're wrong, and sometimes I think, oh my God, they're right. Why did I doubt myself? So it's again, all those, you want to have different voices in the room so you can get to a better understanding and hopefully a more productive way to move forward, as opposed to just being stuck doubting your own self in your own head. We need our group to help us process that.
Yes, we definitely need our group. Going along with that, what do you all think is the best way to advocate for women in other marginalized communities in the arts sector? Just
to become aware that they're out there. I in what we do, luckily, I work with different groups of actors in different plays. So happily in my work, sometimes I will meet an actor who's been working with an arts organization that I'm not aware of. And hopefully, I tend to go see stuff with people that I know in it, but realizing, because we tend to live in little communities that homogenize, I'm stuck seeing the same kinds of things. So you really have to, for me, to be conscious of that. Let me go see something that in a place where I've never been, and hopefully, once I'm aware of people, we are a word of mouth town. You say, hey, I just saw this amazing production, or I just read this amazing play, or saw this beautiful piece of art, or whatever it is, that you share it with the larger community and hopefully get the word out there.
For me, it's a little bit different because I'm behind the scenes in the arts. I'm human resources, and I think human resources spans across the globe. No matter what profession you're in, there's human resources. So me getting into the community, I volunteered very many organizations, social service organizations, et cetera, at schools and things like that. But particularly, I work with organizations and prepare those individuals for mock interviews. So I've noticed a lot of times when I prepare folks for this work readiness, mock interviews, they ask, well, what do you do? What's your profession? And I tell them, I spread the words about I'm in the arts. There's this misnomer of, well, what do you perform? Do you dance? No, I don't do any of that. I am not artistically inclined in any way, shape, or form, but there's other jobs in the arts. And it's fascinating to some of the younger people that I speak with that are just getting into the job market, and or if I'm at a school career day and I'm talking about it, they didn't even know arts existed as far as having a profession behind the scenes. So it's really fascinating to me to educate people on what I do and how I got into the arts. So again, I'm not artsy, has nothing to do with it, but I have a passion for what I do now as a result of the arts.
No, I think that's wonderful. I think that really sums up part of it is just showing people what they're capable of doing, because you're doing it. And I think the same thing with actors. They show up, they do it, they can do that. And at Ensemble, I feel a responsibility because I am a woman producing artistic director. I feel a responsibility to bring marginalized voices to the stage, to make sure that we present plays that are about here and now and that have something to say. So that we can see different points of view and share different points of view without having to argue or disagree with them, just to give them the stage for those stories to be told. And I do feel responsible, particularly because I'm in my hometown. What does Cincinnati need to hear and what does Cincinnati need to experience? So, and I take that responsibility very seriously so that I can use the job I'm lucky enough to have to kind of make sure people feel like the table's set for everybody.
Yes.
And so that's part of our programming, I think.
Yes, and Cincinnati is such a diverse city
as
well. I must say, as a arts administration student and intern, I'm definitely learning a lot, and I'm finding out that there are a lot of jobs, as you were saying, that are behind the scenes that I didn't even know existed until I got the opportunity to go and to shadow and to see exactly what's going on. And now my eyes are opened, and I feel like there's a world of opportunity for me to continue to do what I love in many different ways, whether it be on stage, whether it be off stage. For you guys, how has representation changed over the years as you've worked and you've seen people come through, and where do you see work left to be done?
Well, I will say when I was younger, you'd get cast breakdowns for different productions, what are they doing at the various theaters where you've worked before, and it was always 25 roles for men, 1 role for a woman, 14 roles for men, 2 roles for women. That it was a real discrepancy. So I think there's still work, but I definitely think things have swung. As a woman of a certain age, I will put ageism in there now because now it's something I'm aware of. That I think they've always talked about the men kind of go from romantic juvenile to the classic leading man, and then the distinguished silver fox, and then the whatever, you know, that there was no cliff. But for women, once you hit 40, there was nothing for you till you were a grandmother. And I think that's starting to change too.
So you speak of ageism and representation in the past and what work we have to do now in the future. I speak of racism when it comes to being a black female. So I think the representation for me is really hard back in the day, because there were, that I saw growing up, did not see very many black females in the arts at all, and let alone behind the scenes. I remember when I first started early on in my career, the first arts organization for which I was employed, I was the only person of color, period, in the entire office, and there was one musician of color out of 150 employees. So that was a learning experience for me, that why aren't there more of me in this place? I don't understand why, but I was young at the time. So I knew that was an uphill battle for me. That's when I started getting more and more interested in get yourself out there in the schools, get out there and educate people that this actually exists. Yeah. I started off as that's just a job for me, but then it turned into a career because I had a passion for what I did. So representation is very important. Now, do we have more work to do? Yes. We need to get to a point in society, in this country, in this world, whatever, as to where we don't even need to have these discussions. Mm-hmm. That's what I think the work needs to happen.
You know, I used to have people when we would, when I started at being a producer, I was one of the only women there, and then now there's more women there. Then there became more black faces and, faces that have come from other countries. There's more diversity in terms of that, but there's a long way to go. And I think the one thing to do is to be very conscious of it when you have the opportunity to hire someone or to give somebody the opportunity, whether they're an apprentice that comes in and does an internship, or whether it's somebody that may not have the sort of pedigree that somebody else has, but they have the passion. And passion will win every time. Passion will win every single time. Ensemble, most of the heads of our departments are female. I didn't go out and say men need not apply, but I've hired the people who I believe have the strongest dedication and strongest passion to the mission of that organization. And it so happens that most of them end up to be women. So women, I know it sounds so cliche, but women have to help other women. Yes. Yeah, and if you don't recognize in your own circle and in your own world a diversity of people, then you don't have any business pretending that you can represent anybody, because you're just staying in some singular path from centuries before you. You're not changing anything.
Where can we find more women gaining momentum as directors and writers?
Looking at the arts now, I think if you are an actor, you should learn how to apply for a grant. These are things you should learn. Learn how to apply for a grant, and also learn how to create your own material, so you're not waiting for the phone to ring. I think empowering people to and inspiring them either through mentorship, scholarships, grants, or just leaving that time available in our education to encourage them to create something of their own voice, to me seems to be a good way to get the ball rolling in that direction.
And I think also adding on to that, going a little bit younger, going into high schools, and nice. Yeah. That's where, even before that, elementary school, but where that interest is sparked, to become an artist or to do something artistic. I think cultivating that group of individuals and nurturing them and growing them, I think it kind of starts there, and they blossom from there. So I think us, ladies such as us, going out into the community, going out to these different organizations, or entering into the different facets of our lives and promoting what we do, and just lighting that fire in somebody, we're getting our future audiences, we're getting our future artists and performers, et cetera, our behind the scenes arts administrators. So I think it's really important to begin right there and grow that seed.
Right, and you're right, because if
Yeah.
we can create, we need the audiences too.
Yeah.
And
Right.
getting, it's not everybody's calling maybe to be a playwright, but if you have someone who's out there listening to the different
Right.
voices, that's only going to benefit our community. But people have to feel like, oh, there's going to be something here for me. It's worthwhile for me to go to these places to hear these
Right.
different voices. And I'm sure you're working on trying to get a younger base.
Yes, we are, but working back to what you said is, young people don't need to wait. I mean, it's not about, well, I'll do that when I finish this school, or I'll do that when I finish this, or when I meet. No, just do it. Sometimes it just takes you, if you have a phone, to record a poem that you thought of on, or to write it, or to just, put together 2 or 3 people to, put together a dance of some sort to a thing. It's, I don't think anybody should wait. And you never know what it'll do to feed your own soul. It may not get picked up. A lot of times that's exactly, like Annie said, that's exactly how it happens. I know of plenty of people that had an idea in like their room or in a basement or sitting in a theater, and they've suddenly become, filmmakers. But I also know it feeds yourself if you want to express yourself in a way, and not always depend on somebody else's approval of it. If you write something because you decide that you need to express yourself, that's great. And if someday you want to share it to somebody and they go, oh wow, I want to make this into a television series, that's great. But the idea of recognizing that your own self-expression is important, that's kind of the way to start. And if we don't let children and other people, young people, know that their voice is important, just because it is, without projecting where they'll get by using it, that starts really young. That starts really young, making sure they know that they are to be cherished and heard, and that they're important.
And lastly, what advice do you have for women who are beginning their career in the arts?
Ask anybody you can out for coffee. Don't be afraid. I was so intimidated, like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. Reach out, ask people how they did it, because there's a million ways to build a career. Those kind of connections have been beyond priceless for me in my career. The people who I've just kind of casually, it took all the courage to say, will you meet me for coffee, or do you have like 20 minutes? Because I could just, because I don't know how, or I'm stuck, or I don't know how to go to that next place. People never say no. I mean, it's like, I can't offer you a job, but I'm happy to talk to you about what I did, or here's an idea. And almost always they'll suggest somebody else that I should talk to.
Exactly.
And then you get, it's just that ripple effect.
So many people are afraid to go and ask for assistance or help, and maybe even they've come to me, they've come to you, say, who should I talk to? But just get out there and do it. If you have a passion for it, go for it, is what I say. Like Lynn said earlier, that passion will take you so far. You're not afraid to fail at that particular point because you're following your dreams. You'll never know unless you get out there and you just do it. So my advice, get on that cliff and jump right off.
I think Amy Kohler said, great things happen when great people don't wait till they're ready. So don't wait till you're ready.
Right.
Just do it now. Jump now. Take that cliff.
I will, 63, the things I regret are the things I didn't do, not the things I did. And I've fallen on my tuchus more than once, and I'm sure it'll happen again, but those aren't the things, like, boy, that was a mistake. Yeah. Those aren't the things that keep me awake at night. It's like, oh, why didn't I? Those are the things that I regret.
Absolutely.
And there's a saying my mother used to say all the time. She said, you've heard this, closed mouths don't get fed. You've got to open your mouth.
That is great.
That's great.
I created it just now.
That's exactly it.
Exactly.
Yes.
You've got to speak up. You've got to get out there. You've got to, if you feel it in your heart, you go for it. It's, like you said, it's not who you know. Because you don't know who you don't know. You don't know who you know until you get out there and you start asking questions. You get your network, you get that advice, you get that push, and just go for it.
I'm taking all this advice to heart,
Good.
just so you know.
We want you to be very successful and hire all of us and hire all of our friends.
You'll become the next one to discover all of it.
Nothing but huge success moving forward.
I am hoping for it. It has been a wonderful hearing and talking to you guys and hearing all of your wonderful wisdom. Thank you so much for coming out, and thank you so much for answering my questions.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for having us with you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to have you guys.
Thank you.
That's it.
Clap.
We'll say any other outro type things you want.